Let's move into our kids sermon quiz very quickly here. What animal is on the screen, is on several slides? Is it a buffalo, a giraffe, a tiger, or a bear? Okay. And then number 2, what year was significant in today's sermon? Was it 1844, 1798, 1843, or 476? That one would be one you have to pay attention for, kids. And it will be on a slide, though. And then number 3, what Bible verse is the last one shown on the screen? Will it be Luke 21, John 18, Revelation 13, or none of the above? And we're going to eliminate that one because that's funny. I wrote that early this morning, and between sermons, I eliminated that slide, I think. Just a second. Let me check and see. Let me check. Nope, it's still in there. Okay. I eliminated a different one that I didn't mean to earlier, and I haven't found it yet. So, oh, there it is. Okay, very good. Let's get into the next thing, which, of course, is our word. Our word today is the word dragon. And so keep count of how many times the word dragon comes up today. And it's actually going to come up in a positive sentence over and over and over again. And kiddos, if you keep up with that, helps you pay attention and follow along with the sermon, you can meet Sister Bev. She's our lollipop lady again today out in the foyer there at the welcome desk. And she'll be glad to take care of you. We continue with our politics and power sermon series, addressing things that are contemporary and yet ancient in our world today. And our sermon title today is Dragon Talk. See, there's number 1. If you're keeping up with the word dragon, there's number 2. And of course, fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us dragons can be beaten. Now, the book of Revelation is no fairy tale, but it speaks of a dragon, and that he has been defeated, and that though battles continue, he will ultimately be vanquished. They overcame him, and I put in brackets because the context, the dragon, by the blood of the Lamb. Revelation 12:11. And so the war was won at the cross, yet battles rage through our world today until Christ returns. But today, though we will face some tough times ahead, the good news is the dragon slayer is coming. Yet before Revelation's final battle, there's a shocking twist with a portrayal of a blended beast that's both dragon and lamb. 2 symbols who could not be more opposite, 2 powers on a collision course, yet in this imagery merged together into a prophetic Jekyll and Hyde. Ultimately, it takes the world down such a dark path that God says enough is enough. But the dragon slayer is coming. Revelation 13:11, then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. What are we talking about? We're talking about a beast, an animal that comes up out of the earth, and it has 2 horns like a what? Lamb, but it speaks as a dragon. An end-time prophetic Jekyll and Hyde of a lamb and a dragon together. Who or what is this? We're going to look at 8 quick points. And though there are challenging times ahead, don't lose hope because the dragon slayer is coming. And as we delve into this, Revelation 13 and verse 11, it's a beast. We've seen that beasts in Bible prophecy represent kingdoms. Daniel 7:17, Daniel 7:23. That it arises around 1798 at the time of the French Revolution. In fact, Revelation 13:5 said that the first beast would rule 42 months. And in Revelation 13 verse 10, it talks about he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, and he that killeth with the sword must be killed by the sword. Here's the patience and faith of the saints. And Adventist scholars, as well as some others, understand that to refer to the time of the French Revolution when the papacy was taken captive at the order of Napoleon Bonaparte. And so that was 1798 when Pope Pius VI was taken off the throne in the Vatican and taken to Valence, France, where there he died in a dungeon. And so at that time, the second beast arises. In fact, that's what it says in Revelation 13, if you're there in verse 11, right? It says, then, right after verse 10, then I saw another beast. So when you see the word then there, you're going, okay, this is setting forth something that follows something. So what comes before then? And it's that verse, the he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. That's what it's referring to. Here's the time period for you. We'll put it on screen just very quickly here. A day in Bible prophecy equals a year. That 42-month time period, or 3.5 years, or 1,260 days, it began in 538 AD when General Belisarius was sent from Constantinople to drive the Goths out of Rome. They had sacked Rome, the Ostrogoths, drive them out of Rome, and then he left the bishop of Rome, later to be called the Pope, in charge of Rome to defend it militarily in the future, in charge of the armies of Rome. And so it was that event that led the Bishop of Rome, the papacy, to not just be a religious leader now, but the political military leader of Europe. And that marked a change that would continue. And so then we come forward to 1798, 1,260 years later, and what's taking place? The French Revolution in 1798. It happened precisely the year that Bible prophecy would have predicted there. And so it arises around 1798 from a sparsely populated area. Where do we get that? Well, the first beast, Revelation 13, verse 1, it says, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. The first beast arises out of the sea. In Revelation 17:15, we've looked, again, this is a series. We've studied topics before, and when you're reviewing to go deeper, you can't review thoroughly or you don't get to anything new. You just have an encore presentation. And so Revelation 17:15, the waters, the sea, represent multitudes, nations, peoples, and tongues. Well, the opposite of multitudes of people, which is what waters or the sea are in Bible prophecy, would be a sparsely populated area. The opposite of a lot is a few or a little. That's right. And so that's very simple. We're looking here at a new baby nation. The other beast of Bible prophecy, represented as Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and even papal Rome, many had existed for hundreds of years before they came on the world stage as a dominating power. But this power would still be youthful in nature as it came on the world scene in a mighty way. It would have Christian principles. It had two horns like a what? Like a lamb. Now, the symbol of the lamb appears 31 times in the book of Revelation. And every single instance, it represents Jesus Christ, except in one spot. That one exception is here in verse 11. This is it. Had two horns like a lamb. But there's clearly a Christian principle, a Christian influence, a lamb-like influence, if you will. It has no king as a democracy. Where do we get this point? Again, we're just moving quickly. Our purpose today is not just to identify this beast, as we've done a couple of years ago in a sermon here in one of our seminars. But what we're trying to do is to get this out and then build upon it and go deeper. And so just very quickly, where do we get this idea of no king? Well, Revelation 13:1, it says, And I stood up on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Upon his horns, 10, what does it say? Crowns. By way of strong contrast, it being in the same chapter, the beast that follows, what's missing on the horns of the second beast that were upon the horns of the first beast? The crowns, the fitting symbol of a monarchy. And of course, the Vatican ruled in Europe, which was a strong area that was ruled by monarchies, kings and queens of France and Austria and Germany, etc. But this would have no crowns on its lamb-like horns. Would become corrupt, okay? And so ultimately, that's kind of the trend for all nations that we've been looking at, is that Satan is the one that deceives the nations. Have we studied that? And so that tends to be a downward trend. You know, God raised up Israel as a mighty nation for Him in the Old Testament, but did they become corrupted? Yes, so that tends to be a problem in our sinful world in which we are in. And then it ultimately would have worldwide influence. Where do we get that? Revelation 13, are you there? Verse 12. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, so that he causes the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Now, if you're going to cause all the world to do something, you've got to have influence where? In all the world. And so, there it is. Now, these identifying points, many have concluded, match a description of the United States of America. We'll do a quick review of that. Is it a nation? Yes. Did it arise around 1798? Yeah, George Washington served as our first president up until then, but something interesting happened in 1798 itself. France became the first nation to recognize the U.S. as a nation and send ambassadors. Now, you can claim you're a nation before other nations recognize you, but in the community of nations, you're really just playing house until they do. For instance, you can go out into the middle of West Texas where the land is cheap and buy 1,000 acres and call it the nation of Bob if you want to. And The FBI will leave you alone or not. But you're not a nation until the other nations of the world begin to recognize you as a peer. And in 1798, the same nation used in prophecy to fulfill the 1798 prophecy, the wounded head, also sent ambassadors to the United States recognizing it as a nation. Now, another thing that we'll cover very quickly is from sparsely populated area, yes, North America, largely uninhabited except for a few scattered Native American tribes. As a new baby nation, yes, it was just coming into being. Christian principles, my friends, some would even argue that it was founded officially a Christian nation. I'm comfortable saying it was founded on the Christian principles of religious liberty and freedom. Not officially adopting Christianity, but rather the adoption of the belief that you can worship God according to the dictates of your own conscience. A Christian principle that is there and not a coercive principle, you see. And so, no king is a democracy. We've never had a ruling monarch. Some people think the current president's going to turn into a ruling monarch. Some people thought the last president was going to turn into a ruling monarch. It seems like you hear that every 4 or 5 years in this country. So whatever. It does keep having the peaceful transfer of power thus far. And so, becomes corrupt. I don't think I need to even go through a history of what's been taking place in America, that America has been in a moral free fall. And has been becoming corrupt. Where do you get the idea it becomes corrupt? It speaks as a dragon. And then worldwide influence. If you're wondering about who the world's final superpower will be, it will be the United States of America. For a while people, Russia, 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 and then, they're still there, but that kind of eased off a little bit now, and you hear China, 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 but they've got this problem where they've had a one-child policy in China for many, many years because they had such population, right? Well, that has led to a lot of older folks with not many younger folks. And China, people that have studied this, they know it. And you can go look it up for yourself. It is a serious issue. Should the Lord tarry another 10 or 15 years, China may be a powerhouse. But guess what happens when their workforce gets retirement age and they don't have young people to replace them? They're in a pickle. We're looking at this power in Revelation 13 as the world's dominant sole superpower. I think we're looking here at what's going on in America, and that we're going to see some phenomenal economic times that are going to cause America to be able to have such influence as to lead the whole world in a specific direction. And I think we're going to see some problems, perhaps some serious economic problems as well. Problems that are serious enough that Americans give over their control to a domineering power, to a domineering leadership. I think we're looking at both. I think prophecy demands both, personally, as we're looking. You say, well, there's tough times coming. Yeah, but don't lose hope. The dragon slayer is coming. Now, the land beast is the United States of America. Revelation 13:11, it says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb and spake as a dragon. Now, those don't necessarily happen simultaneously, although they might appear to. You've got a country founded on religious liberty. That's 2 horns like a lamb. The 2 horns, the book Great Controversy, wonderful apocalyptic book, goes in and describes those as civil and religious freedom, those 2 horns, okay? And so that's great, but ultimately speaks as a dragon. Well, a nation speaks through its legislative body, through its laws, through its actions. And when it speaks as a dragon, it's going to become an oppressive power, telling people what they can do and what they can't do, religiously speaking. Okay? Now, when we look here at that, that's interesting. We are between the lamb and the dragon. It had 2 horns like a lamb, freedom, speaks as a dragon, loss of freedom. That and has lasted a couple of 100 years. Praise the Lord for that. How much longer will it last? We don't know. Now, we can be encouraged, though, as we see all of these things happening, that the dragon slayer is coming. And as we delve into it deeper, here we are, this lamb-like dragon beast arises around 1798. Revelation 13, let's look there, verse 9. Revelation 13, verse 9. We see it here again today. Go a little deeper. We referenced it, quoted it earlier, right? And it says here, Revelation 13, and verse 9. I'm in 14. No wonder that doesn't look right. It was good too, but it just wasn't right. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. Who kills with a sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And then it says, verse 11, then I saw another beast. So at the time that this beast is rising, this going into captivity is taking place. And Adventist scholars identify that as the French Revolution. Now, it's interesting that there's this tie to the French Revolution and France with the start of our country. Oh yeah, with the start of our country. In fact, if it wasn't for, well, I wouldn't say we wouldn't be here without French help, but French were helpful. In the Revolutionary War, France took a side. Which side did it take? The side of the United States, did it not? Yes, it did. And so France was part of helping that, and then the French Revolution took place, and the wounding of the head with the Vatican, etc. Well, the French Revolution is an interesting thing. Number one, there were several parallels with what we see going on in prosperous America now. It had been very prosperous, and it was a time where there had been some oppression, but they had seen glimpses of better times. And then things got bad again, and the people went into rebellion. There was also a time where there were three classes. First was your priesthood, second was your nobility, and the third was your everybody else. And they were called estates, three estates. And your middle class, but especially those in poverty, were all in the lower class. And as bread got expensive, as food got expensive, as work got scarce, when people couldn't get work and they couldn't get food, anarchy began to break out. They stormed the Bastille. I mean, they ended up, a lot of different things took place. Finally, they beheaded the emperor, the Madame Guillotine, as they called it in French, and I slaughter French, so I apologize. The guillotine, and some 16,000 people they killed with the guillotine, including the king, right? And then at the end of it, the guy that led the charge to kill everybody with the guillotine, they killed him with one too. And so what goes around comes around, I suppose. The French Revolution and the idea that there's no God and no creation and no Bible. And so what you had is you had a prosperous upper class that there was a wide margin between them and the mass of the people below. And then you had this bent toward no religion and no God and no Bible. And it became a very dark time. And since we see some of those parallels in society today, I can tell you that it's a very dark time, but don't lose hope. The dragon is angry, the dragon is at work, but the dragon slayer is coming. Here's some parallels with the French Revolution. There are several authors writing about this right now. They're seeing some parallels with what's happening in America today with the things that were leading up to the French Revolution, okay? It says here, the Atlantic, the revolution is already underway. This was back in April as they were a little more wound up about the COVID-19 outbreak and where that would lead. But here's what it says. Fear sweeps the land. Many businesses collapse. Some huge fortunes are made. Panicked consumers stockpile what? Paper, food, and weapons. The government's reaction is inconsistent and ineffectual. Ordinary commerce grinds to a halt. Investors can find no safe assets. Political factionism grows more intense. Everything falls apart. This was all as true of revolutionary France in 1789 and 1790 as it is of the United States today. Are we at the beginning of a revolution that is yet to be named? Do we want to be? That we are on the verge of a major transformation seems obvious. The comparisons can so easily be made between the beginning of the French Revolution and the United States today that those can be made does not mean that Americans are fated to see a reign of terror, the Red Terror as it was, or that a military dictatorship like Napoleon's looms large in our future. What it does mean is that everything is up for grabs. Where are we? What's going on? Have you noticed there's some social unrest, some racial unrest, some economic unrest, health unrest? There's kind of a smorgasbord of things right now. Now, could things level back out and go back almost to normal for a few years? And sure they could. But they could also progress. The thing is God has not given us the time frames, but He's given us signs and things to be aware of. We should be aware of things. Rolling Stone magazine, we've heard of that, right? Came out with a critique last month, August 6th, The Unraveling of America. And by Wade Davis, an anthropologist, the elite 1%, he says, of Americans control $30 trillion of assets, while the bottom half have more debt than assets. The 1% versus the 99%. And then he says, the 3 richest Americans, this was a shocking one to me, and it was also in Forbes back in 2017. The 3 richest Americans have more money than the poorest 160 million of their countrymen. That was one day. 3 guys, half the country. 3 guys have as much as half the country. I'm like, wow, that's pretty heavy, right? Fully a fifth of American households have zero or negative net worth, a figure that rises to 37% for black families. The vast majority of Americans, white, black, and brown, are 2 paychecks removed from bankruptcy. Though living in a nation that celebrates itself as the wealthiest in history, most Americans live on a high wire with no safety net to brace a fall. I saw some glimpses of some of this stuff. That's why, probably prior to March, April, this wouldn't have resonated as much with me to see. And of course, with some societal unrest and other things that have been going on, it certainly grabs one's attention. But, when I went to Walmart trying to get toilet paper, you hear what I'm saying? And when I found myself at Walmart not buying the food I wanted to eat, but getting the food that was left. You hear what I'm saying? I realize, is this a big deal? Yes. But could worse things happen that trigger more difficult situations? The fact of the matter is, there have been a lot of people that have faced some serious issues as the government has deemed their jobs not essential. I remember the one lady in Texas, and she had opened up her hair salon, and she got brought before the judge. What do you have to say, about running your business? It's a non-essential business, and basically her answer was, it's essential for me to make money and feed my family. That's essential. What do you do if 2 months, literally? I look at my account and the liquid assets, and I'm thinking, 2 months. Boy, 2 months with no paycheck, and life would get difficult. Life would get interesting. Life would get challenging. And so, is it feasible? If you don't think it's feasible, either you're not a student of history or you put too much faith in modern society and technology. Bible prophecy reveals that something's coming, and I'm not predicting what it is. I don't know what it is. Will current societal unrest just blow over? Perhaps, perhaps not. But eventually change is coming that's not for the better. And America's problems can't be fixed at the ballot box. The dragon is at work, the one who deceives the nations. And he's doing something here that is beyond what you and I have the ability to stop. And so, though the dragon is angry and at work, the dragon slayer is coming. As we think of the political times in which we're in, one of the founders of the Adventist Church gave this advice. We are not, as a people, to become mixed up with political questions. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers in political strife, nor bind with them in their attachments. Keep your voting to yourself. Do not feel it your duty to urge everyone to do as you do. I can tell you, I've seen enough of what's going on in this world, and I've studied history enough to know that regardless of which direction you vote, or which direction you don't vote if you don't vote, or which direction things go in this country, that we really don't know the people at the top. We know what we're being shown. And I have no faith that either political party is beyond, in a time of trouble and turmoil, turning to a power over control approach that will cause this country to speak as a dragon. Change is coming to America. From Christian principles to speaking as a dragon. How? Could it be a reaction to a revolution or an attempted revolution? Maybe a heavy-handed militaristic response? Could it be economic collapse, racial and social unrest, a global pandemic, moral decadence, perhaps religious wars? Maybe militant Islam raises its ugly head again, and some of these things? Maybe all of the above? Maybe something we haven't even considered yet. Dragon talk. That's what's coming. Speaks as a dragon. That's coercion. And though the dragon is at work and the dragon's going to flex his muscles and there are challenging times ahead, do not lose hope, do not get discouraged, do not be downcast, because the dragon slayer is coming. The lamb-like dragon beast who arises around 1798 would end up with worldwide influence. That's right, Revelation 13:12, we read it here. We've got a few more things to cover yet today. Stay with me if you're able. It's coming up on noon. Go eat if you need to. I don't say that flippantly. There are some diabetics that need to eat on time. I've got it. I understand. I see what you're saying. Okay, it says here in Revelation 13 and verse 12, it says, He exercises all the authority of the first beast in His presence. Now, what kind of authority did the first beast have? Look there, Revelation 13, and it says here, and verse 4, So they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? Authority was given, but not from on high, but from the impostor who would be on high. The dragon gave him his power and seat and great authority, and this beast, the one who spoke like, or had the horns like a lamb, the one who came up with Christian principles, would speak as a dragon, with the dragon's authority given to him. And what would he do? He would point people to the first beast. And so, the dragon's going to be exercising his influence, but the dragon slayer is coming. It talks about the image of the beast. Read on, Revelation 13 and verse 3. And it says here, Revelation 13 and verse 3. Now, I know there are some Adventists out there that go, we've heard all this prophecy stuff, and we grew up with some of that stuff in the 50s, and we've had enough of some of that stuff. And I respect that. I respect your experience. But guess what? Someone needs to teach this to the world, and we're the ones that have it. It has to be shared. And we look at the three angels' messages in the next chapter, and it backs that up. But we look here, and it says in verse 13, He performs great signs so that He makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. This is reminiscent of Elijah's day, except those that are waiting on a miracle. You got two men that clearly preach Elijah's message, John the Baptist and Elijah. The Bible says John the Baptist worked no miracle. Jesus talked about if people were waiting on miracles to be convinced, they would not be convinced and they would be deceived. People that are waiting to get off the fence in the last days to see miracles, the miracles are going to come to deceive from the wrong side. That doesn't mean God doesn't still work miracles, but that means that miracles that are going to be moving society, and I'm not talking about little sleight of the hand, rabbit out of the hat tricks. I'm talking about miracles that will sway modern, sophisticated people and world leaders. He performs great signs so that He makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men, and He deceives those who dwell on the earth by the signs which He was granted to do in the sight of the beast. He was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image of the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. What is the image of the beast? Revelation 13:13-15, we just read it. He deceives those who dwell on the earth because of those signs that was given to him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image of the beast who had a wound by the sword and did live. Well, my friends, as we delve into this, it gets heavy, it gets serious, and some people get worried. But don't get worried, my friends. Yes, the dragon is doing what he can. He's down here on the earth enraged because he has but a short time. And the reason he has but a short time is because the dragon slayer is coming. Seventh-day Adventists understand that the image of the beast is apostate Protestantism. Not just Protestantism, but apostate Protestantism, because Protestantism is what we are. In fact, as Seventh-day Adventist Christians, I like to tell people that I'm a true Protestant. Protestant means you're protesting the false teachings and the misleadings of the Vatican. But the problem is that the historical portion of the Protestant Reformation is largely gone because those who were Protestants are no longer protesting. They're joining back up in allegiance with the Vatican. We are Protestants, but the image of the beast is apostate Protestantism. Why? Well, the land beast in Revelation 13:11-17 would need to be a human organization. Why? The papacy, the sea beast, is a human organization. It would also need to be a Christian organization. Why? The papacy is a Christian organization, so it will appear Christian. And especially when you get to the cause of enforcement, the speaks as a dragon, the power over authority to force people to do things. And of course, we talked about last week the original Christian nation. First it was pagan Rome, and then it was papal Rome, wasn't it? Okay? And then the end-time papacy will be intolerant. So it'll be an intolerant organization. Just as the papacy was intolerant during the Dark Ages, you say, yeah, but the Vatican, the popes are nice guys and this and that. I tell you what, I like Pope Francis. In fact, I like Pope Francis so much that it kind of weirds me out. I'm thinking, that's a problem. I'm liking him a little too much. Yeah. He seems to have a lot more common sense than a lot of the others have. Instead of alienating the world with everything, he's trying to build bridges. The thing is, he comes from a Jesuit background. The Jesuits was a society of priests that were formed as a response to the Reformation. He's actually been educated in the Counter-Reformation and how to woo the Protestant world back to Catholicism, and he's done more to do so than any of those before him. What they did is they finally put an evangelist for their church at the top of their church, and he's not so into spouting their dogma to them as he is to trying to reach out and connect with folks in the world. But guess what? Times change, popes change. And conditions in our world change. Here's another one for you. As we talk about the land beast, as we talk about the image going to be made to the beast, must also be a political organization. And don't be fooled, the Vatican is certainly a political organization. And if you don't believe so, just watch Fox News or CNN. It doesn't matter which one, or pick one of the others. I mean, wherever you want to get your slanted news from. You can pick, and any major event going on in the world, it might not tell you what Germany or France thinks, but any major world event, in the words that scroll on the bottom, it's going to give you, it may not even give you an official position from the U.S., but it's going to tell you what the Vatican's position is. Start reading that little stuff at the bottom. It's always there. Always there. What you find a Bible prophecy predicting is a coming union, if you will, a coming marriage between church and state. Is it going to be issues of economic collapse? I'm going to tell you what. I saw enough of a glimpse that with what was happening this spring with COVID, going to the grocery store, I remember walking through the Conley Walmart, and I remember just how odd it felt. It was deserted and yet empty. There were still a few things here and there. You know, a lot of the stuff that you wouldn't need to survive was still there. But it was deserted and empty. And you know, I'm wondering, is this going to get worse? What if the nation's truckers decide this is too serious to keep driving? You know? Well, what if? And I'm not trying to preach gloom and doom. You say, are you trying to scare me, preacher? No, I am trying to connect with you. I am trying to help you think, though. Bible prophecy is going to come true. Could the Lord tarry beyond our time on earth? That's a possibility. But Scripture also says, the evil servant says, my Lord doth delay his coming. So let's don't try to kick the can too far down the road. You hear what I'm saying? Say, well, should we just, go all prepper or whatever? Well, I'm not saying that either. Actually, we're told not to stockpile goods because men of strength will come take them from us. Have you read that? Yeah. Prepare yourself spiritually. That's ultimately what's going to take you through. You say, well, is it a time to be scared? Actually, it's not a time to be scared at all. It's a time to put trust in the Lord and realize that He's control. And though the devil is going to exert all the power that he can, the dragon slayer is coming. Now, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Will come about in a couple of different ways here. Oh my, I went back too far. I got to punch back through all of these to get where I want to be. Here it is. Okay. A few different ways that this could happen. Right now, we've got this godless approach that is coming from certain aspects in our country, and very reminiscent of French Revolution and the lower parts of society, claiming not getting what they deserve, etc. There's that whole element. Could that spiral and get crazy? Yeah, it could. Could there be a return to God voluntarily in this country? Could absolute disaster be averted a generation because there's a true return to God? Yeah, it could, perhaps. But what if calamity in the world, whatever you want to call calamity, we went through several different options of things, and we don't know, and I'm not claiming we do. In fact, we could be totally blindsided with something that brings these events about we've not even taken time to think about. But could it be that a return to God is seen as the answer and the only hope, and that instead of it being voluntary, it's coerced at the hands of government and with the influence of the number one top religious Christian leader on the planet, the Vatican? Well, that's what Bible prophecy predicts is going to happen. But the dragon slayer is coming. You go into the last part of the chapter, it talks about the mark of the beast, and we'll be talking about, a lot of times we want to talk about, we hear in Adventist circles about Sunday laws. We're going to potentially look at some of that coming up in the next few weeks. I prefer the term blue laws because at least when you talk to people that aren't Adventists, they can understand what you're talking about. And some of them have been around. We're going to talk about this, developing. We're going to go to Revelation 17, and we're going to see, about this woman who has authority over the kings of the earth. And we're going to keep looking at this politics and power series. It's serious stuff. But as we look at all these signs of the times, and that's what these are too, just like in Matthew 24 and Luke 21, and the earthquakes, the rumors of wars, and all of these things, these signs of the times, these are also signs of the times. And it says, now when these things have taken place, kids, this will be the last verse on the screen. Stand up and raise your heads because your redemption is drawing near. So when you see Satan fighting with all he has, because he has but a short time, remember, look up. Your redemption draws near. The dragon slayer is coming. Number one, what animal is on several slides? Is it a buffalo, a giraffe, a tiger, or a bear, kiddos? A buffalo. Now, someone may say, why in the world did you have a buffalo up there? We needed a beast that had lamb-like horns that looked like it could talk like a dragon, and that's what we got. It also very well may have been what John saw, although we don't know that. Yeah, that might be the way someone would describe seeing a buffalo. And by the way, before Buffalo Bill and those dudes, it was the most prolific animal on the continent. Mammal, that is. What year was significant in today's sermon? Did we put it up on the slide? Was it 1844, 1798, 1843, or 476? B, 1798. And here we go. What Bible verse is last shown on the screen? Which one was it? A, Luke 21. There you go. How many times did we say the word dragon? Well, you'll have to see Sister Bev in the foyer, kiddos, and get your lollipop if you kept count, because she is the official scorekeeper for that. Stand with me as we close in prayer today. Loving Father, we thank you for the privilege and honor that we've had of opening your word today. And though we see that the dragon is angry because he has but a short time, and though he's out to deceive the nations, and he's certainly at work among us today, we know that Jesus is the only hope. And though the dragon is angry, the dragon slayer is coming. Help us to rest in that hope, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.